The ventilator in bed 4 had a rhythm like a failing engine. Hiss, click, drag. It was the only sound in the unit besides the low, persistent beep of the cardiac monitors, a digital chorus that never quite synced up. My legs hummed with a dull throb that started at my heels and worked its way up to my hips. 12 hours on the floor. My scrubs felt heavy, sticking to my back in patches of cold sweat. I reached for my coffee, but the cup was light. Empty. Just a ring of brown stain at the bottom, hours old. I was typing up Mrs. Kowalski's vitals when my phone buzzed against the hard formica of the nurse's station. The screen lit up. Mom. I stared at it. The name didn't bring a warmth to my chest. It brought a tightening, a reflex, like bracing for a physical blow. I had not heard from her in 3 months. Not since Christmas, when I had bought her the wrong kind of cashmere scarf. 2 shades too dark, apparently. I let it sit there. The screen went black. I went back to the keyboard. The patient stable. Oxygen saturation 94%. Buzz. 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 I exhaled a sharp sound that vanished into the noise of the ward. I picked it up. A text message this time. The preview flashed across the cracked glass. We are at the airport surprise trip to Miami with Bridget's family. Todd got a deal. Can you check on the house while we are gone? Water the plants. Thursday. My thumb hovered over the glass. There was no greeting. No question about my life. Just a command. Water the plants. 44 years old. Head nurse of the toughest ICU in Minneapolis. And to Glenda Prescott, I was still just the hired help that she did not have to pay. June slid into the chair next to me, the wheels squeaking on the linoleum. She looked at my face, then at the phone. That face, June said, her voice low and raspy from the shift. Let me guess. Your mother airport text, I said, keeping my voice flat. Surprise trip to Miami with Bridget's family. I am on plant duty. June did not laugh. She spun a pen between her fingers. Girl, one of these days you are going to stop being the family houseplant and start being a whole damn garden for yourself. That is very botanical of you, I said. I am serious, Colleen. You keep leaving the door unlocked and wondering why they walk all over your carpet. You have to lock the door. You are the only one with the key. I looked away. Locking the door sounded nice. But Glenda Prescott did not knock. She just broke windows. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Mom. I almost ignored it. I should have ignored it. But the preview caught my eye. Also took some money from the joint account for spending cash. Hope that is okay, we'll pay back later, haha. The joint account. The world tilted on its axis. The hum of the ventilators dropped away, replaced by a roaring in my ears like static. My fingers were suddenly clumsy cold as ice as I tapped the banking app icon. The loading circle spun. 1 second. 2 seconds. The joint account. The one Dad and I set up 8 months ago. The one I put $800 into every single paycheck. The one meant to pay for the chemotherapy that was keeping my father alive. The balance loaded. $127.43. My breath hitched. I stared at the number. Yesterday that number had been $12,847. Gone. I read the text again. We'll pay back later, ha ha, ha ha. 2 syllables. A joke. She had taken the money that bought the drugs that stopped the tumors from strangling my father, and she had laughed about it. Colleen June's voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. You look like you have seen a ghost. My vision blurred at the edges. Not tears. Rage. Hot and absolute. I need to make a call, I said. I stood up. I did not log off. I did not say goodbye. I walked out of the unit, past the security doors, and into the stairwell. I took the stairs down to the parking garage 2 at a time, my shoes slapping hard against the concrete. The garage was freezing. The air smelled of gasoline and old snow. I got into my car and slammed the door, sealing myself in. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the phone twice before I could dial. Pick up, I whispered. Pick up, pick up, pick up. First call, no answer. Second call, straight to voicemail. I redialed. On the fourth ring, he answered. Colleen is everything. The account, Dad. I said. My voice was unrecognizable. It scraped my throat. The joint account. There was a pause on the line, then the sound of an airport announcement in the background. A woman's voice over a loudspeaker. Bridget laughing somewhere close by. Your mother said she needed cash for the trip, Dad said. His voice was small, thin. You did not think I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Dad, that account has $12,000 in it. Had. Past tense. That money is for your treatment. Colleen, please, he hissed. I could picture him hunching his shoulders, turning away from them. I will figure it out. I will tell them I forgot my medication, come back early. And what? Explain why you need $8,000 for medication. You would rather die than tell them the truth. It is not that simple. It is exactly that simple. You have been sick for 8 months. Bridget does not know. Mom does not know. Because you are protecting them. You are protecting them from worry. While I work double shifts. While I skip my own doctor appointments. While I fund your survival. While you, what he asked. I stopped. The words were there piled up in my throat like stones. While I starve so you can eat. While I disappear so they can shine. But I could not say it. Because then I was the martyr. Then I was making it about myself. That was what Mom always said. You are so sensitive, Colleen. You always make it about you. Nothing I said. It does not matter. Colleen, I am sorry. I should have told them. I should have. Donald Glenda's voice cut through the line, sharp and demanding. Who are you talking to? The gate is boarding. I have to go, Dad said. The panic in his voice wasn't about the cancer. It was about her. We will talk when I get back. I will pay you back, I promise. Dad, I don't want your money. I want you to click. The silence in the car was deafening. I stared at the phone. I have to go. 4 words he had been saying my whole life. He said it when he missed my softball games because Bridget had a dance recital. He said it when he left my nursing school graduation early because Mom had a headache. He said it the night Grandma died, leaving me alone in the hospice room to hold her hand while she took her last breath. I have to go. He could tell them right now. He could turn to Glenda and say one sentence. I have cancer and Colleen has been paying for my treatment and you just stole that money. But he wouldn't. Because Bridget might feel bad. Because Mom might cry. Because the vacation might be ruined. The anger settled in my chest, heavy and cold. It wasn't the hot flash of rage anymore. It was something solid, like concrete setting. He was choosing them. Again. He was choosing their comfort over his life, over my sacrifice. I looked at the phone again. The banking app was still open. $127. I could call Mom. I could scream the truth into the phone. I could transfer money from my personal savings right now, go into debt, fix it quietly like I always did. I could be the invisible safety net that caught them before they hit the ground. I leaned my head back against the headrest. The ceiling of the parking garage was stained with water damage, ugly brown streaks on gray concrete. Or I could do nothing. My finger hovered over the transfer button. My savings account had $4,000 in it. Enough for half a treatment. Enough to buy him time. I closed the app. I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat. Let them go. Let Dad miss his treatment. Let the consequences find them. For once in 44 years, I was not going to be the net. I was going to be the pavement. My apartment was quiet. It was the kind of quiet that rings in your ears, a silence so heavy it felt like it had mass. I sat at the small kitchen table, the one I had bought secondhand when I first moved in 10 years ago. It was sturdy, functional, and completely unadorned, much like the rest of my life. The glow of my laptop screen painted my hands in a harsh blue light. I had a spreadsheet open. I did not need the computer to do the math. I had done it in my head a dozen times on the drive home, but seeing the numbers in black and white made them real. They were not just thoughts anymore. They were a verdict. Treatment cost $8,400. Personal savings, $4,200. Credit card limit, $3,000. Time until next treatment, 6 days. I stared at the blinking cursor. Option 1 was what I had always done. Transfer every cent I had. Max out the credit card. Go into debt. Pay the bill. Dad gets his treatment on Friday. Mom enjoys her vacation. Bridget gets to post photos of her perfect family on Instagram, and I eat ramen for 6 months and pick up extra night shifts to pay off the interest. Option 2 was the nuclear option. Call Mom. Tell her everything. Tell her that her husband has stage 2 non-Hodgkin lymphoma and she just spent his lifeline on mojitos and a rental condo. The trip would be ruined. She would scream. She would cry. She would make herself the victim of his deception and I would be the villain for ruining the family memory. Option 3. I looked at the darkness outside my window. The reflection of my own face stared back. I looked tired. Not just sleepy, but worn down like a stone in a river that had been battered by the current for too long. Option 3 was doing nothing. It felt like poison and medicine at the same time. The thought made my stomach turn a physical wave of nausea that had nothing to do with the cold takeout container sitting untouched next to my elbow. If I did nothing, he missed the treatment. If he missed the treatment, the cancer had a window. A small one, maybe, but a window. I closed the laptop. The sudden darkness of the room felt like a relief. I walked into the bedroom, my socks sliding on the hardwood floor. I could hear my neighbor's television through the wall, the muffled applause of a late-night talk show. It sounded like a transmission from another planet, a world where people laughed at jokes and went to bed without calculating the cost of a human life. I sat on the edge of my bed and opened the nightstand drawer. Inside, nestled between a spare watch battery and a rosary my grandmother gave me, was the envelope. It was thick, creamy white paper. My name was written on the front in Dad's cramped accountant handwriting. For Colleen. Open when needed. He had given it to me the day we set up the joint account. Just in case, he had said. Just in case I do not get to say what I need to say. I had almost opened it a dozen times. Tonight my fingers brushed against the paper. It felt cool smooth. I picked it up, weighing it in my hand. It was heavier than a single sheet. 2 pages, maybe 3. The memory of that day hit me sharp and sudden. The hospital parking lot 8 months ago. The smell of hot asphalt and exhaust fumes. Dad leaning against his sedan, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. He had been crying. It was the first time in 44 years I had seen my father cry. The scans came back, he had said, staring at his shoes. It is lymphoma. Stage 2. I remembered the way the ground seemed to tilt. I reached for him, but he held up a hand. Do not tell your mother, please. Do not tell Bridget. They need to know, Dad, I had said. This is serious. I know it is serious. That is why I cannot tell them. His voice had cracked a sound like dry twigs snapping. Your mother. She will make it about how scared she is. Bridget will fly in for 2 days, cry beautifully, and then go home. And I will spend whatever time I have left managing their feelings instead of just being sick. And me, I had asked. What am I supposed to do? You already know how to be with someone who is sick, he said. You do it every day. You do not need me to perform healthy for you. I sat there in the dark, gripping the letter. You do not need me to perform. That is what he had said. But what I heard, what echoed in my empty apartment, was something else. You do not need anything from me. And I had taken it. I had accepted the burden because needing things was for Bridget. Needing things was for Glenda. Colleen did not need. Colleen handled. I put the letter back in the drawer and shoved it shut. I was not opening it. Not tonight. I was not opening it because I was scared it would make me forgive him. Or maybe I was scared it would say nothing I needed to hear. Either way, I was not ready. I lay down on top of the covers, staring at the ceiling fan blades. I am not transferring the money, I whispered to the empty room. I am not calling Mom. I am going to let this play out. Not because I wanted him to get hurt, but because I needed to know the answer to a question that had been gnawing at my bones for decades. If I stopped holding everything together, would anyone else even try? Or had I made myself so invisible that they had forgotten I existed at all? The next morning, the hospital was the same as it always was. Controlled chaos, the smell of antiseptic and floor wax. I moved through my shift on autopilot, checking drips, updating charts, smiling at families who looked at me with terrified eyes. June found me in the break room around 10. I was staring at the coffee maker, watching the dark liquid drip into the pot. "You okay?" she asked. She leaned against the counter, crossing her arms. "You have got that look." "What look?" "The I have made peace with murder. Look." I did not sleep much. I said, pouring a cup. "About the Miami thing." I took a sip. It was bitter and hot. I made a decision, which is, I am not fixing it. Whatever happens, happens. June's eyebrows shot up toward her hairline. "That does not sound like you. Maybe that is the point." She watched me over the rim of her own mug. June did not know about the cancer. No one did except me and Dr. Shaw. I could feel her trying to solve the puzzle of my face, trying to figure out why a missed plant watering schedule had turned me into a stone statue. "If you need to talk," she said softly. "I know. Naples timeshare. Say the word. I mean it, call. Whatever is going on. You do not have to carry it alone." I nodded, looking down at my shoes. "I know. But I did. I always had." My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. A text from Dad. "Made it safe. Beautiful weather here." I stared at the words. Beautiful weather. He was dying. His wife had stolen his medical fund and he was texting me about the weather. "Good," I typed back. 3 bubbles appeared. He was typing, then stopped, then typing again. About the account. "I am sorry. I will fix it when we get back." I felt a cold laugh bubble up in my throat. Fix it. With what money? "When do you get back?" I asked. "Sunday." I stared at the word. Sunday. His treatment was Friday. Sunday was 5 days away. I slipped the phone back into my pocket. I did not reply. There was nothing left to say. The timer was ticking now. He was in Miami walking on a beach pretending everything was fine. And I was here 5 days away from the moment the truth would crash into us all. I went back to the floor. Room 4 needed a line change. I walked down the hall, my shoes silent on the linoleum, and waited. By Thursday, the waiting had turned into a physical thing. It sat in the center of my chest like a ball of lead, heavy and cold, making it hard to take a deep breath. I went through the motions at work. I hung IV bags, I charted fluids, I smiled at families who were losing everything and told them we were doing our best. But my eyes kept darting to the clock on the wall, watching the second hand sweep around and around, ticking away the time until the explosion. June cornered me in the break room during lunch. I was staring at a turkey sandwich I had no intention of eating, picking at the crust of the bread. The room smelled of microwaved fish and stale popcorn, the unique perfume of a hospital at midday. 3 days, June said. She slammed her diet soda onto the table, the aluminum crack making me jump. "You have been checking your phone every 20 minutes for 3 days. You are twitchy. You are snapping at residents. Even Dr. Shaw asked me if you were okay." "I am fine," I said, not looking up. "You are not fine. You are waiting for something to drop. What happens if you just told me?" I looked at her. "June Okonkwo." My best friend for 15 years. She knew about the time I tripped at graduation. She knew about the guy I dated who stole my debit card. She knew everything except this. I could tell her. She would get it. She would be angry for me. But saying it out loud felt dangerous. It made it real. It turned my father from a man making a mistake into a man committing a slow suicide, and it made me the accomplice holding the camera. "My dad is sick," I said. The words tasted like ash. "Cancer. Only I know." June stopped moving. Her hand froze halfway to her mouth with a pretzel. Jesus, call. And my mom, I continued the dam breaking just a little, just enough to let the pressure out, just emptied the account I was using to pay for his treatment. She took it all. For a vacation. To Miami. June choked on nothing. She stared at me. Her eyes wide, the whites stark against her dark skin. She did what she thinks it is spending money. She does not know about the cancer. "And you are letting them go. I am not fixing it," I said. "I am letting it happen." June sat back in her plastic chair. The plastic creaked under her. She looked at me for a long time, studying my face like a chart she could not quite read. "Okay," she said slowly. "I have questions. About 1,000,000 questions. But first, do you need a hug, or do you need me to tell you that you are not crazy?" "Both," I whispered. "Come here, you disaster of a human being." She pulled me into a hug that smelled of cocoa butter and antiseptic soap. It was tight and solid, the kind of hug that held your pieces together when the glue was failing. I did not cry. I could not cry. If I started, I was not sure I would be able to stop before my shift ended. She pulled back her hands on my shoulders. "So let me understand this. You have been paying for your father's cancer treatment. Secretly. Because he asked you to lie to your mother. The same mother who treats you like the help. And now you feel like the bad guy because you stopped fixing their mess. When you put it like that." "That is exactly how it is," June said, her voice hard. "You have been drowning to keep them floating, Colleen. And they do not even know they are in the water. They do not know they are in the water." The phrase rattled around in my skull for the rest of the shift. She was right. They were paddling around in a heated pool in Miami, complaining about the humidity, while I was back here treading water in the middle of the ocean holding up the raft. Friday came. Day 4. The treatment day. I woke up at 5 in the morning, my internal alarm clock screaming that I needed to drive Dad to the clinic. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling fan. It was spinning slowly, wobbling on its axis. His appointment was at 8 o'clock. At 7:30, I imagined him at the hotel buffet. Maybe eating melon, maybe drinking coffee, not getting dressed, not getting in the car. At 8:15, my phone rang. I knew who it was before I looked. Ms. Prescott. The receptionist's voice was bright and professional, a sharp contrast to the dread pooling in my stomach. "This is Dr. Shaw's office. Your father missed his check-in this morning. We tried his cell, but he is not answering." "Is everything okay?" "He is out of town," I said. My voice sounded calm, detached, like I was giving a shift report. "Family trip." There was a pause. A long, confused silence. "He is on a trip." During treatment, I tried to tell him. "Mrs. Prescott, missing this session is not ideal. The protocol relies on consistency. We can reschedule for Monday, but can you make sure he calls us? We need to monitor his white blood cell count. I will let him know." I hung up. I could have stopped this. I still could. One text. "Dad, call your doctor immediately." Or I could call the hotel. I could scream fire. I could force them to see the water they were swimming in. But I was tired. I was so bone-deep tired of being the only person who cared about the outcome. That evening my phone rang again. It was Dad. I stared at the screen for 3 rings before I picked up. "Colleen." His voice was tight, low. He was hiding somewhere. The bathroom, probably. Or the balcony. The office called, I said. You missed the appointment. I know. They called me too. Colleen, I have been feeling off. Tired, more than usual. That is because you missed chemo, Dad. Your body is waiting for the medicine. Can you reschedule for me Monday? You can call them yourself. Silence. I could hear the wind blowing into the receiver. He was outside. Your mother wants to extend the trip, he said, until Wednesday. Bridget found a spa package. It is a good deal. I closed my eyes. A spa package. He was dying. His cells were dividing unchecked, multiplying in the dark, and they were looking at spa packages. And he was going to say yes, because saying no to Glenda Prescott was harder for him than facing his own mortality. Then I guess you will miss Monday too. Colleen, please, don't be like this. Like what, Dad? Honest. He did not answer. He just breathed into the phone a ragged, fearful sound. Then the line went dead. Saturday, day 5. I was at home watering my own plants when Bridget called. My sister never called me. She texted, she sent photos, she tagged me in posts. But a voice call meant she wanted something that required nuance, or she needed to complain about something she did not want in writing. Colleen. Hey, it is Bridget. Her voice was high brittle, the tone she used when a waiter brought her the wrong salad dressing. What is wrong? I asked. Nothing is wrong. We are having a great time. The weather is amazing. It is just... Dad. My grip tightened on the watering can. What about Dad? He is just being... difficult. Mom is worried. She wanted me to ask if you could look up why that might be. You know, medical stuff. Since you have access to Google or whatever. Tired how I asked, ignoring the dig. Like he wanted to skip dinner last night. We had reservations at this amazing seafood place on South Beach, and he just wanted to sleep. And he looks pale. Mom thinks it is the heat. She says he is not drinking enough water. But I said you would know better. She was describing chemo withdrawal. She was describing a body crashing because its support system had been yanked away. Has he been nauseous? Fever, I don't know. Maybe he barely ate breakfast. He is just napping a lot. It is kind of putting a damper on things, honestly. The kids want him to go to the pool. He should see a doctor there, I said, in Miami. For being tired, Colleen, we are on vacation. Do not be dramatic. Dramatic. There it was. The word that had followed me since childhood. If I cried when I scraped my knee, I was dramatic. If I asked why Bridget got a new car and I got a bus pass, I was dramatic. If I suggested that a man with cancer should see a doctor when he stopped eating, I was dramatic. I put the watering can down on the counter. The water sloshed over the rim, spilling onto the laminate. Fine, I said. Keep an eye on him. Call me if he gets worse. He is fine, she snapped. God, you always make everything a crisis. Just, I don't know. Check if there is a flu going around or something. She hung up. I looked at the puddle of water on the counter. I did not wipe it up. I just watched it spread slow and inevitable, dripping over the edge and onto the floor. They were seeing the crash. They were watching him fall apart in real time. And they still refused to believe it was anything other than an inconvenience. Sunday arrived with a silence that felt heavy enough to break bones. I sat on my couch in the dark, the only light coming from the harsh blue glow of my phone screen. On the coffee table, a cup of tea had gone cold 3 hours ago, a film of oil forming on the surface like a stagnant pond. I opened Instagram. I told myself I wouldn't. I told myself I was above pain shopping. But my thumb moved of its own accord, tapping the icon, scrolling past ads for compression socks and meal prep kits until I found Bridget's profile. 3 generations of Prescotts in paradise followed by a palm tree emoji. The photo was blindingly bright. White sand, turquoise water, the kind of sky that looked improved by a filter. Bridget was in the center wearing a white bikini and holding a coconut. Mom was next to her in a wide-brimmed hat and oversized sunglasses, smiling her public smile, the one that made her look benevolent and wealthy. Todd was holding little Mackenzie on his shoulders. and there in the background sat Dad. He was under an umbrella, fully dressed in a long-sleeved button-down despite the heat. He wasn't looking at the camera. He was looking at his hands. I zoomed in. The pixels blurred, but I didn't need high definition to see what was happening. His shoulders were hunched forward, caving in on his chest. His skin, even in the shadow of the umbrella, had the gray-yellow cast of old parchment. That wasn't a tan. That was a liver struggling to process toxins because the chemotherapy that was supposed to be helping it had been abruptly cut off. 47 likes. Heart emojis from Mom's church friends. Comments like, "So jealous and beautiful family." No one asked why Donald looked like he was fading out of existence. No one asked where Colleen was. Why would they? I was in Minneapolis watering the peace lilies and collecting the mail. I was the infrastructure, not the architecture. I kept scrolling. Another photo, dinner at a seafood place, a spread of crab legs and oysters. Dad's plate was empty. Another one. The pool deck. This one stopped my breath. Dad was sitting on a lounger separated from the rest of the group by about 10 feet. His eyes were closed. His right hand was pressed hard against his abdomen right below the ribcage. I knew that posture. I had seen it in 100 triage rooms. That wasn't resting. That was the specific, rigid stillness of someone trying desperately not to vomit. I took a screenshot. The shutter sound was loud in the quiet apartment. I didn't know why I did it. Evidence, maybe. Proof that while they were drinking mimosas, he was dying in plain sight. Monday morning brought the second missed appointment and a call from Dr. Shaw's office that I let go to voicemail. I listened to it later in the supply closet between rounds. The nurse sounded less polite this time. She sounded worried. She mentioned compromised immunity and rebound effects. I deleted the message. Tuesday came with a text from Mom. Extended until Thursday. Todd found cheap flights. Can you keep watering? I stared at the words. Extended. I typed back a single word. Sure. I could have typed a novel. I could have typed, Dad has missed 2 chemo sessions and his white count is probably dropping through the floor and every day you stay there is a gamble with his life. But I didn't. Glenda Prescott didn't read novels from me. She barely read the footnotes. That night my phone rang. It was Dad. Colleen. He sounded worse than he had on Friday. His voice was thin, reedy, like air escaping a punctured tire. I am not feeling well, he whispered. What is wrong? I asked, gripping the phone. Stomach problems. Headache. It is bad. I can't keep anything down. You need to go to the hospital, Dad. Not an urgent care. A hospital. I can't. Your mother thinks it is bad seafood. We went to that crab place. It is not bad seafood, Dad. You know it isn't. I know. The admission was barely audible. I know what it is. Then tell them. Tell Mom. Tell Bridget. Stop protecting them. I can't ruin Bridget's trip, he said, and the misery in his voice cracked my heart right down the center. The kids are having such a good time. Mackenzie learned to dive today. The kids are having a good time. He was dying. His body was shutting down because he had been denied the medicine that I paid for the medicine Mom stole to pay for this very trip, and he was worried about ruining a diving lesson. This was the man I had sacrificed my savings for. This was the man I had lied for. A man who valued my sister's children's happiness over his own survival, over my sacrifice. Then I don't know what to tell you, Dad. I said, my voice cold and hard as iron. Just tell me it will be okay, Colleen. Please. I looked at the treatment schedule taped to my refrigerator. The dates were crossed out in red marker. I can't do that either. I hung up. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed watching the streetlights drag shadows across my ceiling, waiting for the other shoe to drop. It dropped on Wednesday night. I had just drifted off after a double shift, my body heavy with exhaustion, when my phone exploded on the nightstand. It vibrated so hard it rattled against the wood. 11:47. 3 missed calls from Bridget. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. I swiped to answer on the 4th ring. Colleen. Oh my God. Dad collapsed. Bridget was screaming. Not crying, screaming. I could hear the chaos in the background, sirens' voices shouting in Spanish and English, the distinct rhythmic thump-thump of a gurney hitting pavement. "We are at the hospital," she yelled. We were at dinner and he stood up and he just fell over. He hit his head. There was so much blood. "Colleen, he isn't waking up." "Which hospital?" I asked. I was already out of bed pulling my suitcase from the top of the closet. "Jackson Memorial." "I don't know. They took him into the back. They are asking questions and Mom is freaking out because she doesn't know what medications he is on and put the doctor on the phone." "What?" "Why put the doctor on the phone?" "Bridget, now." He is busy." "I have his medical records," I shouted. "Put him on." There was a fumbling sound, then muffled arguing. A moment later, a deep, harried voice came on the line. "This is Dr. Ruiz. Who is this I am?" "His daughter, Colleen Prescott. I am an ICU nurse at Hennepin County Medical Center. My father has stage 2 non-Hodgkin lymphoma diagnosed 8 months ago. He is currently on a CHOP chemotherapy regimen." The silence on the other end was absolute. The background noise seemed to fall away. "He has cancer." Dr. Ruiz asked, his tone shifting from annoyed to clinical sharp. "Yes. The family here. His wife. She said he has no history." "The family didn't know," I said. I felt a strange cold calm wash over me. It was the calm of the crash site the moment after the impact when there is nothing left to do but triage the damage. Now they do. "Okay," Dr. Ruiz said. "Okay. That explains the neutropenia and the dehydration. When was his last treatment?" "He missed his last 2 sessions. Friday and Monday. His oncologist is Dr. Benjamin Shaw in Minneapolis. I can give you the number. Do that. Hold on." I heard him moving shouting orders to a nurse. "Get a central line. Start broad-spectrum antibiotics. Call oncology." Then Bridget was back on the phone. Her voice was different now, smaller, terrified. "Colleen, I am here. Did you say Dad has cancer?" "Yes. And you knew yes." "For how long?" 8 months. I heard the air leave her lungs. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated betrayal. In the background, I heard Mom start to wail. It wasn't a sad sound. It was an angry, keening noise, the sound of a woman realizing she had been made to look foolish. "I am booking a flight," I said. "I will be there tomorrow." I hung up before she could say anything else. I stood in the center of my bedroom, my hands shaking as I opened the Delta app. The secret was out. The bomb had detonated. The silence was over. I booked the first flight out of Minneapolis. 6 a.m. I packed my bag. I didn't pack a swimsuit. I packed my scrubs. I packed the folder with the bank statements. I packed the treatment schedule with the missed dates circled in red. I wasn't going to Miami to vacation. I was going to war. 4 hours in an aluminum tube is a special kind of purgatory when you are flying toward a war zone. The red-eye to Miami was full of tourists wearing Mickey Mouse ears and college students sleeping off hangovers. But I sat upright in seat 22, staring at the dark fabric of the seat back in front of me. My knees were pressed against the plastic tray table. My purse was wedged between my feet, heavy with the folder I had packed. In the ICU, we have protocols for everything. If a heart stops, there is an algorithm. Compressions. Epinephrine. Shock. Repeat. You know exactly where to stand and exactly what to do. But there is no protocol for walking into a hospital room to face a mother who just found out her husband has been dying for 8 months and her daughter knew the whole time. There is no checklist for that. I pulled out the treatment schedule from my purse. The edges were soft from how many times I had held it. I traced the red circles around the missed dates. Friday, Monday. 2 days that might have cost him everything. My phone buzzed as the wheels touched the tarmac. It was June. Call me when you land. I am serious. And remember, you did not cause this. You just stopped fixing it." I did not call her. I could not. If I heard her voice, the professional armor I had spent 12 hours welding onto myself might crack. And I needed to be bulletproof. Jackson Memorial Hospital smelled different than Hennepin County. It smelled of a different brand of industrial cleaner, something citrusy that tried and failed to mask the underlying scent of sickness and stale cafeteria coffee. The air conditioning was set to Arctic a sharp shock after the humid wall of heat that had hit me the moment I stepped out of the airport terminal. I found them in the waiting room of the cardiac wing. It was a tableau of misery. Bridget was sitting in an orange plastic chair, her mascara smeared in dark streaks down her cheeks. She was wearing a linen sundress that looked obscene under the fluorescent lights. Todd was pacing near the vending machines looking at his phone, probably checking flight prices. And then there was Glenda. My mother sat perfectly straight, her hands clasped around her purse. She was wearing her travel outfit white capris and a navy tunic, but her face was gray. She looked 10 years older than she had in the photos from yesterday. She saw me first. The moment our eyes locked, I waited for relief. I waited for her to be glad that the nurse was here, that the daughter who knew how to talk to doctors had arrived. But her face did not soften. It hardened. Her mouth became a thin, white line. "There she is," Glenda said. Her voice carried across the quiet room sharp as broken glass. The daughter who knew our father was dying and said nothing. I stopped walking. My suitcase wheels clicked into silence. "Mom," I started. 8 months, Colleen," she hissed, standing up. She jabbed a finger in my direction. 8 months of lying to your own mother. You let us come here. You let us drag him onto a plane while he was sick." Bridget looked up, her eyes red and swollen. "How could you?" she asked, her voice cracking. "How could you keep this from us?" "Dad asked me not to tell," I said. My voice was steady. It was my work voice. Calm, authoritative, detached. "And you just obeyed." Bridget stood up too, wiping her face. Like a dog. Without thinking about what we needed. What you needed. The words hung in the air between us. Not what Dad needed. Not what the patient needed. What Bridget needed. It was the family motto, unwritten but etched into every birthday, every holiday, every crisis for the last 40 years. "You had a right to know," I said. "I agree. That is why Dad should have told you." "Do not you dare blame your father," Glenda snapped. "He is sick." He was not thinking clearly. He was scared. You took advantage of that. You made yourself the gatekeeper. I did not make myself anything I said. I showed up. There is a difference. A heavy door swung open down the hall and a man in a white coat stepped out. He looked harried, rubbing the back of his neck. "Mrs. Prescott!" he called out. Glenda turned on her heel, her anger instantly replaced by a performance of terrified devotion. She rushed toward him, grabbing his arm. "Doctor, how is he? Is he awake?" "I am." "Dr. Ruiz," he said gently, disengaging from her grip. He looked tired. "Your husband is stable. We have managed to get his fluids back up. The collapse was primarily due to severe dehydration and an electrolyte imbalance." "When can he come home?" Glenda asked. Dr. Ruiz shook his head. "We need to keep him for observation, at least a few days. Given his underlying condition, his immune system is very compromised. We are consulting with his oncologist in Minneapolis." Glenda nodded, dabbing at dry eyes. "Of course. Anything he needs." Dr. Ruiz looked at his clipboard, then up at us. He seemed uncomfortable. He mentioned he missed his last 2 chemotherapy sessions. That explains the crash. His body was expecting the support. Bridget stepped forward. She looked from the doctor to me, her eyes narrowing. She was not the smart one in school I was, but she was sharp when it came to money. She knew the cost of things. She knew the price of the sandals she was wearing and the cost of the resort they were staying at. "Chemotherapy," Bridget said slowly. "That is expensive, Even with insurance, the copays, the deductible. Dr. Ruiz nodded. It can be considerable, yes. Bridget turned to Glenda. Mom, you guys are on a fixed income. Dad has been retired for 5 years. How is he paying for this? Glenda looked blank. He must have used savings or sold something. I don't know. Donald handles the finances. He didn't sell anything I said. They both turned to look at me. The joint account, Bridget whispered. The realization hit her like a physical slap. The one you emptied for the trip. Glenda frowned. That was just a savings account. Donald never said. He said a lot of things I said. Most of them to me. Bridget walked toward me, closing the distance. Wait. That account. I saw the transfer slip on Mom's phone. It was in Dad's name and your name, not Mom's. Correct. Why would it be in your name? Because I have been the one putting money into it, I said. The silence that followed was louder than the hospital paging system. I could hear the hum of the vending machine. I could hear Todd shuffling his feet 10 feet away. For 8 months, I continued. From my paychecks, $800 every 2 weeks, to pay for his treatment. Glenda put a hand to her chest. She looked like she might faint, but I knew she wouldn't. Glenda only fainted when there was a couch nearby to catch her. You were paying for it, she whispered. Yes. And then you took that money. For a vacation. You texted me, haha. Glenda stared at me. Her mouth opened and closed. For a second, I thought she might apologize. I thought the sheer weight of the fact that she had spent her husband's life support on a condo rental might crush her. But I underestimated her. I always did. If you were paying, she said, her voice trembling with a new kind of indignation. Why didn't you say something when I texted about the account? Would you have listened? Of course I would have, she shrieked. People turned to look. She lowered her voice to a furious hiss. I am not a monster, Colleen. If I had known, but you didn't know. I said. You didn't ask. You didn't ask permission. You informed me, you took it. I didn't know because you hid it. She was crying now, real tears of frustration. You and Donald, plotting behind my back, making me look like a fool. I looked at her, really looked at her. My father was lying in a hospital bed with tubes in his arms because his body was failing, and she was worried about looking like a fool. This isn't fair. Bridget jumped in, flanking her mother. You could have told us any time. You chose to keep it secret. You wanted to be the hero. I wanted him to live, I said. Then why didn't you tell us? Bridget demanded. Because he begged me not to. I shouted. My voice echoed off the linoleum. He begged me not to tell you because he knew exactly what would happen. He knew you would make it about you. And look around, Bridget. Look at this room. He was right. Bridget flinched. Her face flushed a deep, ugly red. How dare you? How dare I? I laughed, and it sounded jagged. How dare you? How dare you take that money without asking? How dare you extend this trip while Dad got sicker? How dare you call me dramatic when I suggested he see a doctor? Glenda straightened her spine. She pulled her cardigan tighter around herself, armoring up. I can't believe this, she said. My husband hid cancer from me. My daughter hid it too. I am the victim here. I stared at her. The words bounced off me. Years ago, they would have cut. They would have made me apologize, made me scramble to fix her feelings. But today, I just felt tired. You are always the victim, Mom, I said softly. No matter what happens, someone else is always doing something to you. Colleen Marie Prescott, she warned. I will not be spoken to like what I asked, like I am finally saying what I have thought for 40 years. I turned away from them. I couldn't look at them anymore. The disgust was rising in my throat, bitter and acidic. I am going to see my father, I said. Do not follow me. I walked toward the double doors. I didn't look back, but I could hear them behind me. They were already whispering, already rewriting the story, already turning the truth into something that didn't hurt quite so much to hold. The door to my father's hospital room was heavy, the kind that seals with a magnetic click to keep the air pressure regulated. I pushed it open slowly. The room was dim, lit only by the glowing monitors and the light spilling in from the hallway. "Hey, kiddo." Dad was propped up against a mountain of pillows. His skin was still pale, the color of old newspaper, but his eyes were open. They tracked me as I walked to the side of the bed. "You look better," I said, though he looked small. The hospital gown swallowed him. "Feel like garbage," he murmured. His voice was raspy, "but they say the fluids help." I stood there gripping the cold metal rail of the bed. The elephant in the room was so big it was practically sitting on his chest. The shouting match in the waiting room, the money, the secret we had shared for 8 months that was now public property. "Dad," I started. "I am sorry I didn't come sooner. I am sorry I didn't." "Colleen, stop." He reached out his hand, shaking, and covered mine. His skin felt papery and dry. "You do not have to apologize. I put you in an impossible position." My chest loosened. Finally. Someone was acknowledging the truth. Someone remembered that I hadn't asked for this role. "They are angry," I said. "Mom and Bridget. I know." He closed his eyes for a second, looking exhausted. "Your mother, she came in earlier. Cried, then yelled, then cried again. She is scared, Colleen. She is embarrassed. Did you tell her everything I tried? She kept talking over me. You know how she gets when she feels managed." I nodded. I knew exactly how she got. The door clicked open behind me. The air pressure shifted. I didn't have to turn around to know who it was. The scent of her perfume, heavy florals, and powder filled the small room instantly. "Colleen." Glenda's voice was stiff, controlled. "I need to speak with your father," she said. "Alone." I turned. She was standing in the doorway, clutching her purse like a shield. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but dry. "I just got here, Mom, and I am his wife. Please." She didn't shout. She didn't make a scene. She just staked her claim. This was her territory. I was the interloper. Even here, even now, she was pushing me to the margins. "Fine," I said. I pulled my hand away from Dad's. "I will be outside." I walked past her. She didn't move to let me through. I had to turn my body to squeeze through the gap. I stepped into the hallway and let the door hiss shut behind me. But I didn't leave. I leaned back against the wall next to the door. I told myself I was just taking a minute, just catching my breath. But when I heard their voices rise muffled but distinct through the drywall, I didn't walk away. I stayed. Glenda's voice was sharp, cutting through the hum of the hospital ventilation. "I know you were scared, Donald. I know you didn't want to worry us. But to tell Colleen and not me?" "Your wife of 45 years, Glenda, Dad's voice was low, pleading. "Do you know how that looks? Do you have any idea? People will think we don't have a real marriage. They will think you trust her more than me." It wasn't about trust. Colleen is a nurse. She understood the medical. I could have understood. The shout was sudden, then quickly hushed. "You never gave me the chance. And now everyone knows our daughter has been paying our bills. Like we are charity cases. Like we cannot take care of ourselves. It wasn't charity. She wanted to help. She wanted to be the hero, Donald. Don't you see?" I froze. The hallway tile felt cold through the soles of my shoes. This is exactly what she does. Glenda continued, her voice gaining a rhythmic, persuasive cadence. "She makes herself indispensable so she can hold it over us. She likes having secrets with you. It makes her feel special. It makes her feel like she is better than Bridget. Better than me." I felt the blood drain from my face. There it was. The narrative shift. I hadn't paid $12,000 and worked double shifts because I loved him. I hadn't kept his secret because he begged me to. I had done it to be superior. I had done it to manipulate them. Glenda. That is not fair, Dad said. Colleen sacrificed. She made a choice. No one asked her to. And now she has thrown it in our faces in front of the hospital staff like we are some kind of monsters. She humiliated me, Donald. There was a long pause. I held my breath. This was the moment. This was where he told her she was wrong. This was where he defended me. Donald, Glenda said softly. You owe me this. After everything, the lying, the hiding, you owe me this. Another silence. It stretched out thin and terrible. What do you want me to do? Dad asked. His voice sounded defeated. I want you to tell her that we don't need her money, that we will pay her back, that she doesn't get to hold this over us. We need to set boundaries. Glenda, fix this, Donald, or I don't know if I can stay in this room. I heard the rustle of sheets, a heavy sigh. Okay, Dad whispered. Okay. I will talk to her. I pushed myself off the wall. My knees felt like water. I will talk to her. Not I will defend her. Not Colleen was right. Not she saved my life. I will talk to her. Which meant he would smooth it over. He would ask me to swallow my pride so Glenda could keep hers. He would betray me to keep the peace, again, for the millionth time. Because keeping Glenda happy was the only law that mattered in the Prescott family. I walked away from the door moving fast before the tears could start. I needed to be somewhere loud, somewhere bright, somewhere I could hide. I ended up in the cafeteria on the ground floor. It was nearly empty at 9 o'clock at night. The fluorescent lights buzzed with a headache-inducing frequency. I bought a cup of coffee that tasted like burnt rubber and sat at a small table in the corner, staring at the scuffed linoleum. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the coffee to go cold. Long enough for the janitor to mop the floor around me twice. I heard the squeak of rubber tires before I saw him. A nurse was pushing a wheelchair toward my table. Dad was slumped in it, wrapped in a hospital blanket. He looked exhausted, gray-faced, but he waved the nurse away when they got close. They said I could take a walk, he said. Saw you in here. You should be resting, I said. I didn't look at him. I looked at the styrofoam cup in my hands. I know, but we need to talk. Here it comes. The script Glenda wrote for him. Colleen, he said, wheeling himself a little closer. I want to thank you for everything you did. The money, the appointments, keeping my secret. I mean that. But I asked. He sighed. But your mother feels like you were trying to shut her out. She feels hurt. And I think maybe we all need to move forward. Start fresh. Put this behind us. Put it behind us, I repeated. She is upset. Bridget is upset. It would help if you apologized. The word hung in the air between us, absurd and heavy. Apologized. For paying his medical bills. For keeping his secret. For flying across the country when he collapsed. What exactly should I apologize for, Dad? I asked, my voice trembling. For not telling them sooner, he said. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He was picking at a loose thread on the blanket. For letting them find out this way. It was a shock. You asked me not to tell. I said. You begged me. In the parking lot. You cried. I know. I know I did. But they don't see it that way. Then make them see it, Dad. Tell them the truth. I looked up. Standing at the entrance of the cafeteria were Glenda and Bridget. They weren't there by accident. They had waited for him to soften me up. They walked over a united front of indignation and injured pride. We want to put this behind us, Colleen Glenda said as she arrived at the table. She crossed her arms. As a family. But you need to meet us halfway. You humiliated us, Bridget added. Her eyes were puffy. In front of doctors. In front of Todd. He thinks we are dysfunctional. I looked at them. Then I looked at Dad. He was staring at his hands. Dad, I said. He didn't look up. Dad, I said louder this time. I gave 8 months, thousands of dollars, hours worrying. And I kept your secret because you asked me to. Tell them. Silence. The cafeteria buzzing seemed to get louder. Tell them, Dad, Donald Glenda said sharply. He flinched. He looked up at me, his eyes watery and pleading. Colleen, please, he whispered. Just let this go. For me. For him. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. He wasn't weak. He was a coward. He would rather I humiliate myself. He would rather I take the blame for his lies than face 10 minutes of Glenda's disappointment. He would burn me to keep himself warm. I looked at the 3 of them. My mother, the narcissist. My sister, the golden child. And my father, the man I had spent my life trying to save, who was currently handing me the knife to cut my own throat. No, I said. Colleen, Dad started. I am not apologizing, I said. I stood up. The chair scraped loud against the floor. I am not apologizing for saving your life, and I am not pretending I did something wrong so you can feel better. Glenda's mouth dropped open. You will not walk away from this family. I looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time, I didn't see a giant. I just saw a mean, frightened woman and the man she had broken. I will be at my hotel, I said. Do not call me unless it is an actual emergency. And by actual emergency, I mean someone is dying, not just their feelings. I walked past them. I walked past the wheelchair. I walked out of the cafeteria and into the humid Miami night, and I didn't look back. The hotel room smelled of lemon pledge and stale air conditioning. It was a generic scent, the smell of 1,000 rooms in 1,000 cities where people slept without dreaming. I sat on the edge of the bed, the mattress stiff beneath me. My shoes were still on. I had not taken off my jacket. Outside the window, Miami was alive. I could see the glow of the city against the night sky, a haze of orange and purple. Down on the street, cars were honking, music was thumping from a passing convertible, and people were living lives that did not involve bargaining for their own dignity in a hospital cafeteria. My phone sat on the nightstand. It was silent. No texts from Dad. No missed calls from Bridget begging me to come back. Just silence. 44 years. I closed my eyes and let the number settle in my chest. 44 years of being the reliable one. The one who showed up early to set up the chairs. The one who stayed late to wash the dishes. The one who remembered birthdays and anniversaries and allergy medications. I had spent my entire life thinking that if I just worked hard enough, if I just sacrificed enough, eventually they would hand me a medal. They would look at me and say, "Thank you, Colleen. We see you. We could not have done this without you." But there was no medal. There was just an empty bank account and a father who would rather watch me walk away than tell his wife she was wrong. I thought about what June had said in the break room. You have been drowning to keep them floating. She was right. But she had left out the worst part. When you drown to keep someone else floating, they do not look down and say thank you. They just stand on your head to keep their feet dry. I reached for my purse and pulled out the old photo I kept in my wallet. It was me and Grandma, taken 3 days before she died. She was frail, her skin like tissue paper over bone, but her grip on my hand had been iron. You see people, Colleen, she had whispered. Don't let them make you invisible. For 28 years, I thought she meant I had to fight to be seen. I thought she meant I had to scream louder, work harder, be more useful until they could not ignore me. I looked at the woman in the photo. Young, tired, desperate to be good. I had been wrong. Grandma wasn't telling me to force them to look at me. She was telling me to open my own eyes. She was telling me that I was the only one who could grant me visibility. And I had spent decades waiting for permission from people who were blind. I picked up the phone. It was 2 in the morning in Minneapolis, but I knew June would answer. She picked up on the second ring. "It is late, honey," she said. Her voice was thick with sleep but alert. "What happened?" "They wanted me to apologize," I said. The words came out flat. "Dad, he didn't defend me. He asked me to say sorry to Mom, to keep the peace." "Oh, call." I walked out. "I am at a hotel. I don't know what to do now." There was a shifting sound on the line, the rustle of sheets. June was sitting up. "What do you want to do?" she asked. I looked at my hands. They were trembling just slightly. Not from fear. From the sheer, terrifying weight of the question. "I want to stop," I said. "I want to stop earning the right to exist. I want to stop feeling like I have to pay rent for the space I take up in this family." "Then stop paying," June said. "Just exist. See what happens." "What happens?" I asked. "I don't know," she said softly. "But I think you are about to find out." I didn't sleep. When the sun started to bleed through the thin curtains painting the room in shades of gray and pink, I got up. I changed into jeans and a t-shirt and walked out of the hotel. The beach was empty. The sand was cool and damp under my feet, packed hard by the tide. The ocean was a rhythmic, indifferent gray rolling in and dragging out with a sound like heavy breathing. I walked until my legs burned. I walked until the hotel towers were just Lego blocks in the distance. Dad would be getting discharged today, or maybe tomorrow. Dr. Ruiz had said his fluids were up. The old Colleen, the nurse, Colleen would have been at the hospital by now. I would be checking his discharge papers. I would be arguing with the pharmacist about interactions. I would be arranging his transport to the airport and making sure Mom knew how to check his temperature. But I wasn't there. I was here watching a seagull pick at a discarded wrapper. If I didn't go back, Mom would have to do it. The thought made my stomach clench. Glenda didn't know how to read a discharge summary. She didn't know the difference between milligrams and milliliters. She would panic. She would make it about her stress. And Dad knew that. He knew exactly who he had married. That was the thought that stopped me cold. I stopped walking, digging my toes into the sand. He knew. He had kept his cancer a secret from her, not because he wanted to protect her, but because he didn't want to deal with her. He knew she wasn't capable of being the partner he needed. So he had drafted me. He had used my competence, my loyalty, and my desperate need for his approval to fill the gap where his wife should have been. He hadn't chosen me because he trusted me more. He had chosen me because I was easier to use. And last night, when forced to choose between the wife he feared and the daughter he used, he had made his choice. I looked out at the water. The sun was fully up now, turning the gray waves to a blinding gold. He chose her, I said to the wind. He chose her comfort over my dignity. He chose her illusion over my reality. Okay. I turned around and started walking back toward the hotel. My steps were faster now, lighter. If he chose her, he could have her. He could have all of her. The panic, the drama, the incompetence, the neediness. He could have the marriage he had built without me acting as the structural support beam that kept the roof from caving in. Back in the room, I got to work. I cleared the small desk of the hotel stationery and the room service menu. I opened my bag and took out the folder I had brought from Minneapolis. I laid it all out. The bank statements. 8 months of transfers. Deposit Colleen Prescott. Deposit Colleen Prescott. Every 2 weeks like clockwork. The treatment schedule. The dates circled in red ink where I had driven him to the clinic, sat in the waiting room, and held his hand while the poison dripped into his veins. And the letter. I took the thick white envelope out of my purse. For Colleen. Open when needed. I held it in my hands. The seal was still unbroken. I could open it now. I could rip it open and read whatever apology or explanation he had written 8 months ago. Maybe he said he loved me. Maybe he said I was his rock. Maybe he said he was sorry for putting this on me. I looked at it for a long minute. Then I put it down on the desk, still sealed. I didn't need to read it. I didn't need his words to tell me who I was anymore. I knew who I was. I was the woman who had kept him alive, and I was the woman who was done apologizing for it. I picked up my phone and dialed June again. I have decided something, I said when she answered. I am listening. I am going to go back to the hospital. Colleen. Not to apologize, I cut her off. I am going to tell them exactly what I have done. I am going to show them the math. And then I am going to tell them exactly what happens next, which is I am stepping back. From all of it. The secret keeping, the money, the being on call for everyone's emergencies. What about your dad? June asked. Her voice was careful. I love him, I said. And I realized as I said it that it was true. I did love him. But love wasn't a suicide pact. I can't save someone who won't let me. And I can't keep sacrificing myself for a family that treats my sacrifice like an inconvenience. June let out a breath she must have been holding. What do you need them to know? I need them to know that I am not angry. I am not trying to punish anyone. I am just done. I am choosing myself for the first time in 40 years. And if they don't accept that, then they don't. Their acceptance isn't the point anymore. Mine is. I gathered the papers into a neat stack. My hands were steady. I felt a strange sensation in my chest, something expanding and light. It took me a moment to recognize it. It was relief. June. Yeah. That timeshare in Naples. Is it still available next week for you always? The key is under the mat in the lockbox. I will text you the code. I think I'm going to need it, Honey June said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Take as long as you want. You have been running on empty for 40 years. It is time to refuel. I hung up. I put the papers back in the folder. I put the sealed letter on top. I went into the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. I looked at myself in the mirror. The circles under my eyes were dark, and my hair was a mess, but the woman looking back at me didn't look like a victim anymore. She looked like someone who had finally learned how to say no. I packed my bag. I checked the room one last time. I was ready. The automatic doors of the hospital entrance slid open with a hush, letting in a blast of humid Miami air before sealing the lobby back into its air-conditioned silence. I walked past the gift shop where I had bought a pack of gum 3 days ago. I walked past the cafeteria where my father had asked me to apologize for saving his life. I did not stop for coffee. I did not check my phone. Under my arm, I held a blue plastic folder. It wasn't heavy, but it carried the weight of 8 months of silence. When I reached the cardiac floor, the nurse at the station looked up. She recognized me. She opened her mouth maybe to tell me visiting hours were strict, but something in my face stopped her. She just nodded and looked back down at her screen. I walked to room 312. The door was open a crack. I could hear Glenda's voice. She was complaining about the thread count of the hospital sheets, her tone a low, buzzing irritant. I pushed the door open. The room went quiet. Glenda was standing by the window adjusting the blinds. Bridget was sitting in the visitor chair scrolling on her phone. Dad was in bed looking small and pale against the white pillows. Colleen, Glenda said. Her voice was a mix of surprise and wary triumph. You came back. I stepped into the room. I didn't walk to the side of the bed. I stood at the foot of it, claiming the center of the floor. I did, I said. We need to talk. All of us. Bridget sat up straighter, slipping her phone into her purse. If you have come to apologize, she started, her voice tight, we are ready to listen. Mom is really upset about... I haven't, I said. The interruption was soft, but it stopped her cold. I am not here to apologize, Bridget. And I am not here to argue. I am here to tell you what happens next. Dad shifted in the bed. The sheets rustled. Colleen, he said, his voice raspy. Whatever you are going to say, please, let's just be a family. I am not here to hurt anyone, Dad, I said. I am here to be honest. Maybe for the first time in our family's history. I placed the blue folder on his tray table. It made a sharp slap against the plastic. I opened it. Here is what is going to happen, I said. I am going to show you something. Then I am going to say what I need to say. And then I am going to leave. You don't have to respond. You don't have to agree. I just need you to listen. I spread the papers out. This is the joint account history, I said, pointing to the columns of numbers. 8 months of deposits. All from my salary at Hennepin County. Glenda leaned in, squinting at the fine print. Her eyes widened as she scanned the totals. $12,400, I said. That is the total. Bridget stood up and walked to the tray. She looked at the statement, then at me. Why didn't you tell us you were doing this? She asked. The edge was gone from her voice, replaced by genuine confusion. Because Dad asked me not to, I said. And because I thought I was helping. Because I didn't know how to say I need help, too. I pulled out the second document. The treatment schedule. It was wrinkled, stained with coffee rings covered in my handwriting. Every appointment on this list, I said, tapping the paper, was paid for by the money I put in that account. Every single one. Until Tuesday. Glenda looked at the dates. She looked at the red circles around the missed appointments in Miami. I turned to her. Mom, I said. She looked up, her eyes wet. I know you are angry that Dad kept this from you, I said. That is between you and him. But you need to understand something. I didn't enjoy having this secret. I didn't want to be the only one who knew. I wanted to tell you every single day. Then why didn't you? She whispered. Because every time I thought about it, I remembered how you react to bad news. You make it about how hard it is for you. And Dad, he couldn't handle that while fighting cancer. He chose to hide because he didn't have the energy to manage your feelings and his survival at the same time. Glenda opened her mouth to protest, a flush rising on her neck. I am not done, I said. I turned to Bridget. You called me dramatic when I said Dad should see a doctor. You extended your vacation while he was getting sicker. You have spent our entire lives competing with me for a crown I never wanted. Mom's approval. Bridget crossed her arms, defensive now. I wasn't trying to win, Bridget, I said gently. I was just trying to exist. And I am tired of feeling like my existence is an inconvenience to your narrative. Finally, I looked at Dad. He was crying silently. Tears leaked from the corners of his eyes and tracked into his ears. Dad, I said, I love you. I have proven that in ways that cost me. But I can't save you from yourself. I can't keep lying to protect people from their own choices. And I can't keep being the one who carries everything while pretending I am carrying nothing. The room was silent. The only sound was the rhythmic hum of the IV pump. So here is what changes, I said. I closed the folder. I am not managing Dad's treatment anymore. That is between him and his doctors and his wife. Glenda blinked. But you are a nurse. You understand the medical terms. I am his daughter, I said. Not his nurse. Not anymore. I am going back to Minneapolis tomorrow. And I am taking some time for myself. Time I haven't taken in years. I stepped back from the bed. When I come back, I am happy to have a relationship with all of you. A real one. Where I am allowed to have needs and limits and bad days. Where I don't have to be useful to be valued. I looked at each of them. If you can't do that, I understand. But I won't be invisible anymore. I won't be the family convenience. I won't be the plant waterer. Bridget looked down at her shoes. I didn't know, she said softly. About the money. About any of it. I know, I said. Glenda reached for Dad's hand. Her fingers were trembling. We are not bad people, Colleen. I never said you were, I said. You are just people who stopped seeing me. I am asking you to start again. I reached into my purse and pulled out the thick white envelope. The seal was still unbroken. "I have something for you, Dad," I said. "Something you gave me 8 months ago. I never opened it." I placed it on his chest. "Read it. Or don't. It belongs to you either way." I turned and walked toward the door. My legs felt light. The crushing weight I had carried into the room was gone, left on the tray table with the bank statements. Colleen. It was Dad. I stopped in the doorway. He was trying to sit up, struggling against the pillows. "Wait," he rasped. I turned. He picked up the letter. His hands were shaking so hard the paper rattled. He tore the end open. He didn't pull the pages out. He just held the torn envelope. "I wrote this 8 months ago," he said. "I was scared. I wanted you to know that I know what I asked, that I failed you, that I let your mother, that I never stood up for you, that you deserved better." I felt a prick of tears, but they didn't fall. "I know, Dad. But I want you to know something else," he said. "That day in the parking lot when I told you, you were the only person I could tell. Because you are the strongest one. You always have been. Strongest." I looked at him. Really looked at him. A man who loved me, but who loved his comfort more. "Being strong shouldn't mean being alone. Dad," I said. He nodded slowly. "I know. I am sorry I made it that way. I forgive you," I said. And I meant it. The anger had burned itself out, leaving only clarity. "I do. But forgiveness doesn't mean I go back to how things were. I understand. Take care of yourself," I said. "Let Mom take care of you too. She needs to learn how." "Will I see you?" he asked. "Yes. When I am ready. When you are ready." I walked out into the hallway. I pressed the button for the elevator. The arrow lit up green. Colleen. I looked back. He was still watching me from the bed framed by the doorway. "Thank you," he said. "For everything." "You are welcome, Dad." The elevator doors chimed. I stepped inside and let them close between us. 1 week later. The balcony of the condo in Naples overlooked the Gulf of Mexico. The water was a calm, impossible turquoise, shifting to deep blue at the horizon. The air smelled of salt and jasmine. I sat in a wicker chair, my bare feet propped up on the railing. I had a cup of coffee in my hand. I had made it myself. It was exactly the way I liked it. There was no phone buzzing on the table next to me. I had turned it off 3 days ago. I checked it once in the evening just to make sure the world hadn't ended, and then turned it off again. Dad was back in Minneapolis. Bridget had sent one text. "I am thinking about what you said. Mom hadn't reached out yet." That was okay. She would eventually. Or she wouldn't. June slid open the glass door and stepped out onto the balcony. She was wearing a silk robe that caught the morning breeze. "How are you feeling?" she asked, leaning against the railing. "Strange," I admitted. "Light. Like I have been carrying a heavy bag I didn't know I was holding, and someone finally took it." "That is called freedom, baby," June said. "It feels uncomfortable at first. Like new shoes." "I keep waiting for the guilt to come," I said, looking out at the water. "The I should be there feeling. Is it coming?" "No." I took a sip of coffee. "And that is what feels strange. I thought I would fall apart without them needing me. Turns out I was already falling apart with them needing me. I just didn't notice." I thought about Grandma. Don't let them make you invisible. She wasn't telling me to fight for their attention. She was telling me to see myself. Even when no one else does. Especially when no one else does. June sat down in the other chair. "So what now?" Now I smiled. It felt different than my old smile. It felt real. Now I figure out what Colleen wants. Not Nurse Colleen, not Daughter Colleen, just Colleen. "I don't know her very well yet," I said. June laughed, a warm, rich sound that mixed with the cry of the seagulls. "You have got time, honey." I looked at the horizon where the sky met the sea in a seamless line of blue. Yes, for the first time in 44 years I had time. I took a deep breath of the salty air, tasting the salt on my lips. I watched a pelican dive into the water and surface again. I was here. I was real. And I was finally completely visible. 6 months later. The fourth Thursday in November usually smelled like stress sweat, burnt marshmallows, and Glenda's perfume. For 20 years, my Thanksgiving started at 5 a.m. It involved wrestling a 20-pound bird into my mother's oven because she didn't want to touch raw meat, refereeing arguments between Bridget and Todd about politics, and washing crystal wine glasses by hand while everyone else watched football. This year, my kitchen smelled like roasted garlic and silence. I stood at my own counter in my own apartment. I was wearing flannel pajama pants and a t-shirt that said, "Nope." The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade was playing on the small TV in the corner, the sound turned low. There was no 20-pound turkey, just a specialized roast chicken from the local deli, a tray of stuffing I had made because I liked it, and a pumpkin pie June had brought over the night before. My phone buzzed on the granite. I looked at it. I didn't flinch. My heart rate didn't spike. That was the new normal, a quiet victory I celebrated every single day. Mom, 10:14 a.m. The table looks so empty without you. Dad is just staring at the carving knife. He doesn't know how to do the slices thin like you do. We saved your seat. It's not too late. Attached was a photo, the dining room table set with the good china, the gold-rimmed plates I had bought them for their 40th anniversary, and there, right next to Dad, an empty chair. It was a trap, a beautiful, gilt-edged trap. 6 months ago, that empty chair would have looked like an accusation. It would have screamed that I was a bad daughter, a cold woman, a traitor to the family blood. Today it just looked like furniture. I didn't reply. I didn't type out a justification. I didn't apologize for my absence. I just pressed delete. Glenda wasn't missing me. She was missing the sous chef. She was missing the buffer between her and her husband's illness. She was missing the person who absorbed the tension in the room so she didn't have to feel it. She was missing the appliance, not the person. There was a knock at the door. It wasn't the frantic pounding of a family crisis. It was a rhythmic, jazzy beat. Shave and a haircut 2 bits. I opened it. June was standing there holding a bottle of sparkling cider and a bag of ice. She was wearing a sequined sweater that caught the light. "Tell me you didn't burn the bird," she said, breezing past me. "It is a chicken, June. It is practically self-cleaning." She set the ice down and looked at me. "You checked your phone." "I did." "And picture of an empty chair." June paused. She popped the cork on the cider. "And what did you see?" "I saw a seat I don't fit in anymore," I said. And I realized something. That chair wasn't reserved for me. It was a cage. I just never noticed the bars because I was too busy polishing them. June smiled. She poured 2 glasses. "To cages left open," she said. We sat on my balcony wrapped in blankets eating stuffing out of the pan. It wasn't the picture-perfect holiday Bridget was currently posting on Instagram. It was messy. It was quiet. It was real. I thought about Dad. He was still in treatment. He went to his appointments alone now, or sometimes Glenda drove him. I heard through the grapevine a cousin in Wisconsin that he had missed a session last month because Glenda had a migraine. The old Colleen would have rushed over. I would have driven him. I would have fixed it. The new Colleen stayed on the balcony. Because here is the hard truth I learned when I stopped drowning. You cannot save people who are comfortable in the water, even if the water is toxic. Dad chose Glenda. He chose the path of least resistance. He chose the migraine over the chemotherapy. That was his right, and it was my right to not watch him do it. A week ago, a letter had arrived in my mailbox. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. Cramped, accountant style. Inside was a check for $500. In the memo line it just said, Installment 1. There was no note, no apology, just the money. It would take him 4 years to pay me back at this rate. Maybe he would finish. Maybe he wouldn't. But every time I looked at that check on my fridge, I didn't see the money. I saw a boundary. He knew he couldn't buy me back. He knew he couldn't guilt me back. He could only respect the line I had drawn in the sand. It was the most honest interaction we had ever had. I looked over at June. She was laughing at something on the TV, her head thrown back light, catching the sequins on her shoulder. This is what family is, I thought. Family isn't the DNA you share or the history you endure. Family isn't the people who demand you set yourself on fire to keep them warm. Family are the people who hand you a blanket when you are cold. Family are the people who see you when you are standing right in front of them, not the version of you that serves their needs. I took a sip of cider. It was crisp and cold. Somewhere in Minneapolis, Glenda was probably complaining that the turkey was dry. Bridget was probably rolling her eyes at Todd. Dad was probably wishing he could disappear into the garage. And I was here. I wasn't invisible. I wasn't a ghost haunting their dining room. I was solid. I was whole. And for the first time in 44 years, I was full. I looked directly at the empty space where the fourth wall would be, at the invisible audience of my life. If you are the one sitting in that chair today, the one measuring your worth by how much pain you can swallow, the one watering dead plants hoping they will bloom, listen to me. You don't have to wait for them to tell you to leave. They never will. The table needs its servant. You have to be the one to stand up. You have to be the one to walk out the door. It will be scary. It will be quiet. But the stuffing tastes so much better when you aren't choking on your own silence. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope you save the only seat that matters, yours.